Okay, we are live. Hi, everybody. I am Penina Taylor, and I am really glad to have you join us for this workshop. This is a kind of, what we're going to do is we're going to hear from somebody named Manjyoti. Manjyoti Bhattacharya is a productivity coach, author, and speaker. And he helps professionals minimize, I do that every single time, overwhelm and to get more done in less time. So Manjyoti is an author, and he's going to be talking to us today. He's going to be doing a little mini workshop for the Coaching with Courage Facebook group, which is, if you're watching this through Facebook, you already know what it is because you're a part of it. It is the community that I've created for coaches, speakers, and leaders to be able to support each other in their process and for it to be a safe place to provide that support, both peer level and hopefully for me to be able to put some input in. So, all right, well, I am very, very excited to introduce you to Manjyoti, and I'm going to let him take over now, and I'm just going to stop talking. Manjyoti, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Penina, for having me here. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to add value to this community. I love doing this, and I love what you do, what you're doing for coaches, speakers, leaders, individuals at at a very high level and a very profound level. So very, very happy to be part of the movement and to share what I can. Right. So thank you, everybody, for watching this, for joining us. And, I hope to be able to add value, as much value as I possibly can. So I'm a productivity coach, right? I work with professionals. I help them to minimize overwhelm while helping them to get more done in less time, right? Like do less and get more done. So that's my area of expertise. I'm all about hacking time. It's something that excites me. So why time? That's because I think time is one of the most valuable assets that we all have. I mean, once we lose it, we cannot get it back. I mean, you can lose all the money and you can make it back, but once you lose time, you don't get it back. And unfortunately, many of us don't realize until it's too late, right? So we must. It's a great idea to optimize the usage of time, and we can really hack time because there are so many people, so many individuals across the globe. They get so much more done in such less time, and it doesn't really have to be sweating and fretting all the time. You can really think strategically. You can incorporate certain rituals and certain strategies that will allow you to collapse the timeline, right? So I want to start with something which is very, very basic, right? And this is all about the power of reasons. So it's not just about productivity, it's about anything. Reasons come first, answers come second. Strong reasons drive higher levels of commitment. So when you say you want to be more productive, why do you want to be more productive, right? What will happen if you do not prioritize increasing your productivity right now? What happens, right? So many people talk about increasing the productivity, but they don't really follow through, right? Or they don't even get started, or they get started and then they don't follow through. They don't go all the way in, right? So what are your reasons? Because it's not really about your skill sets or your potential, because how much of your potential you tap into comes from how strong are your reasons. So what are your reasons to be productive, which is basically why? How clear are you with your why, right? Because if you're really clear on your reasons of why you need to be productive, and those are emotional, what you're going to do is you're basically going to create the pull of that compelling future that is going to pull you towards it. If you don't have that, you push requires willpower, and willpower doesn't last. So as basic as it may sound, so having strong reasons is very, very, very important. I mean, in the words of Tony Robbins, 80% of anything that you do is psychology and 20% is mechanics. And one of the mistakes many of us do is we directly jump into the mechanics part of it, right? Without really prioritizing on the psychology part of it, right? And a big part of psychology is getting clear on the reasons, right? And making it emotional so that you cannot stop yourself from following through because you want it so badly, right? So what are your reasons? And to help you tap into the reasons, uh, why do you want to be productive? So when we talk about productivity, we are talking about creating more time, essentially, right? So what are you going to do with the extra time? Why is it important to have extra number of hours every week or every month? What are you going to do with those hours, right? And just give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm so sorry. So uh, yeah, so so when it comes to tapping into strong reasons, we are essentially talking about creating more number of hours every week or every month or at the end of 6 months or at the end of 1 year. So what are you going to do with those extra hours? Do you want to learn a musical instrument? Do you want to spend more time with your family members? Do you want to start that side hustle? Do you want to write a bestseller? Do you want to read those books? Or do you want to do all of these things? So come up with those reasons why you want the extra time. What do you want to do with those extra number of hours, right? So what do you want to do with the extra number of hours that you want to have, right? That is the number one. Where do you want to go? Second thing, what happens if you do not prioritize increasing your productivity right now? What happens if you stay where you are? What happens in 6 months? What happens in 1 year? What happens in 5 years? What happens in 10 years? What happens when you look back after 15 years and you realize that you could have increased your productivity, you could have done so much more, you didn't do that. How will that make you feel? That's basically the connecting with the pain, because you want to know where you want to go. You also want to know the place you want to stay the hell away from, because those are going to feed into your reasons. And once you revisit your why, your reasons repeatedly and make them emotional, it pulls you and it'll make it easy for you to follow through, right? So work on the why. And why is twofold. One is, where do you want to go? Why you absolutely have to have increased productivity, more number of hours, getting more done in less time, right? And what is the place that you want to stay the hell away from? So two things. These are the two things that you need to meditate on. You write it down on a piece of paper, both these questions, where you want to go and the place you want to stay away from. And write it down on a piece of paper, look at them every day. More you repeat, more it becomes emotional. And more it becomes emotional, easier it becomes for you to follow through. So number one is why, right? So this is the psychology part of it. Now let's talk about the mechanics, right? So number one is why. Second one is right. So let's talk about something called as the ultimate productivity formula. All right. Let me share the screen. It's all right. I think this screen sharing is not enabled. Sure.
I made you host, so you should be able to share your screen now.
Sure. Let me see. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So we just spoke about why, and why is critically important, right? Because strong reasons drive higher levels of commitment. Now let's get to the mechanics part of it, which is what I call the ultimate productivity formula. Before I talk about the ultimate productivity formula, let me give you an example, right? Because that's like the foundation of what this formula is all about. So let's say you want to drive 400 miles, and if you drive 100 miles an hour, you're going to reach your destination in 4 hours. And if you drive 20 miles an hour, you're going to reach your destination in 20 hours. So it's a simple example, but I want to emphasize the fact that it's not about the number of hours. It's actually more about what you put in every hour, right? Because if you put in 100 miles every hour, you reach your destination in 4 hours. But if you put in 20 miles an hour, you reach your destination in 20 hours. So in the context of our life or our business, how do we put in 100 miles an hour, right? So this formula is all about maximizing what you put in every hour versus increasing the number of hours, right? Because productivity is not really about, in my opinion, productivity is not really about getting more things, doing more things in less time. Productivity is more about getting more outcomes that matter to you in less time, so that it translates into an overall good quality of life for you. Because if it's not translating into a good quality of life, then what are we doing all this for? See, at the end of the day, it has to translate into a good quality of life, whatever that means for you. So productivity is about getting the outcomes that matter to you in less time. And overall, it should translate into a good quality of life. So that's the objective. And we need to be clear about that, because we forget the final outcome, which is basically we are improving the quality of our life. Okay, so what is the ultimate productivity formula? It's this. Ultimate productivity formula has 4 parameters, which is focus, energy, relevancy, and time. And time is the least important of them all. Because whenever we talk about productivity, we talk in terms of time mostly. But I will explain why time is the least important. That example shows it's not about the number of hours, it's what you put in every hour. And what you put in every hour comes from the remaining 3 parameters, which is focus, energy, and relevancy. But let's talk about time to start off, because that's like the most interesting one, even though it's not the most important. So let's talk about time. So we typically talk about time in terms of, so time is more of an emotion, rather than a statistic. What do I mean by that? So typically, many of us think of time in terms of this one large time block during the week, where we can either do a full-time job, or we can follow our passion, or we can do some side hustles. It's difficult to do all of them, because we only have one big chunk and we can only do one thing properly. That's typically the way we think, and that evaluation is more emotional than analytical. Why? Let's change our perception slightly about time. So we have 168 hours in a week, 168, right? And if you sleep for 8 hours every day, you sleep for 56 hours every week. And if you sleep for 56 hours every week, you have 112 hours left for everything else. After sleeping 8 hours every week, 112 hours, that's a lot of time. And if let's say you say, I work in a full-time job for 5 days, 10 hours every day, that's 50 hours that you work in a full-time job every week. If you work in a full-time job for 50 hours, you have 62 hours left for everything else after sleeping 8 hours every week, right? And of course, that those 62 hours will include like the daily chores, your responsibilities, if you have a family, all of those things. But even then, 62 hours is a lot of time if you utilize them properly, right? So the question many a time is not that why we don't have time. The question is, where are we losing all these hours? It may so happen that you might actually be utilizing all those 112 hours properly. But when you're mindful about how you're spending your time, you'll end up finding that there are so many hours that just gets dissipated. It gets leaked out from our schedule, right? So awareness is the first step. Start getting aware of how you're spending your hours, all right? Because we want to make the most of those 62 hours that is left over after doing a full-time job for 50 hours. I'm just making it up because I'm assuming many of us are working, right? If you're not working, then you have a lot of time. So there are typically 2 ways we I won't say waste time. The time gets leaked out because we run on autopilots. So unconsciously, time gets dissipated, time gets leaked out from our schedule. First one is distraction. Distraction could be external, it could be internal, it could be Facebook notification, right? You're scrolling through the news feed and then you got sucked into it and then a couple of hours disappeared. Or it could be, you started watching some interesting YouTube video or something along those lines, and you started watching one cute dog video, and then one video led to another video, and then the third video, and then 3 hours disappeared. It happens to us all the time. So but the thing is, all these hours that disappears, like half an hour here, 1 hour there, 15 minutes there, 30 minutes there, all of those things stack up, and they amount to a lot of time that gets leaked out, right? So first thing is to start becoming aware of where those leakages are happening and start getting back those windows of time, right? um, so once we become aware, we can get back these hours. So if we are losing 3 hours every day, that's 84 hours. 3 hours every day is 21 hours at the end of the week, and 84 hours at the end of the month, 480 plus hours at the end of 6 months, 960 plus hours at the end of a year. What can you do in 960 plus hours? You can read the books that you wanted to read. You can take those trips. You can write a bestseller, or you can start that side hustle. You can learn that musical instrument. You can spend time with your loved ones, or you can do all of that, right? So little tiny chunks of time that dissipates comes together, and it amounts to a lot of time. So once we start becoming aware, we can get back those hours, right? So one way we lose time is distraction. Second one is busy work. Busy work is busy just for the heck of being busy, right? Not useful work. When I say not useful, activities and tasks which are not strongly contributing to the outcomes that matter to you. Maybe it is somebody else's agenda that appeared in the form of an urgent task, which appeared urgent and important at the moment, but in retrospect, it was not really useful. You could have utilized that hour in a better way, right? Or you could have pushed it aside or something like that. So busy work is busy just for the heck of being busy. And second one is distraction. So distraction and busy work, these are typically the two ways we lose time unconsciously. So one of the ways we can get back these hours that we might be losing is start tracking your hours every day. Either you do it at the end of the day, or you can do it even twice a day, like once in the afternoon or once at the end of the day. Just keep a record of how you're spending each hour, and if you're wasting time in the form of busy work or distraction, something random that popped up in your environment and you just got sucked into it, and then later you realize that it wasn't really necessary for you to get involved in that thing. So start recording every hour, ideally twice a day, or maybe at the end of the day, because it's easy if you do it every day. Because if you do it only once at the end of the week, you may not have a memory of how you spent your Monday. So ideally track your hours every day, and more aware you are about how you're spending your hours, you'll be in a better position to get back those tiny hours that gets leaked out unconsciously, because awareness precedes change. More aware you are, more you will catch yourself once you're about to waste an hour, let's say. So that's how you are going to prevent time leakage and make most of those extra number of hours that you have after your full-time job, right? So time is
Yeah, Manjyoti, I know I asked you this actually when I interviewed you on the podcast, but it came to mind again, and now is a good time to ask the question for anybody who's listening, who is a parent who is juggling working at home and having children at home, especially right now during Corona, when there are a lot more kids at home, especially where we are, but all over the country, there's even in the United States, there's a lot of people who are homeschooling because of the whole situation. And, what hacks would you say to help them to minimize the amount of distractions that they deal with during the course of a day?
Right. So first step is, of course, becoming aware, shift from autopilot to becoming mindful. Uh, every afternoon or end of the day, track every hour, right? So that is the awareness precedes change. So that is the one step. And second thing is, start getting clarity on the outcomes that matter to you. Because if you think in terms of to-do list, what will end up happening is, let's say if you have 10 things in your to-do list or 15 things and it's overwhelming, most likely you'll find that 4 or 5 out of those 10 or 15 things will amount to, let's say, 90% of the outcomes, the results that you want at the end of the day. So get clarity on the outcomes. Outcomes will give you clarity about the high value tasks, and make sure most of your hours, most of your time you're spending doing the high value tasks, and track every hour. Shift from autopilot to becoming more mindful. Record how you spent your first half during afternoon or at the end of the day, or both, right? So getting clarity on outcomes and tracking every hour, I think that's going to really help you. And I think there is one matrix I think many of us might be aware. This is called urgent and important matrix. I'm just gonna probably, that might be a really good model that we can use. Let me see if I can. Yep. Is my screen visible? Sure. So this is a matrix. It's called urgent and important matrix. So it has 4 quadrants, and the first quadrant number 1 is includes the tasks that are urgent and important. I mean, these are important and also urgent, meaning it needs to be done right now. Quadrant 2 is not urgent and important. I mean, these are important, but not necessarily urgent. I mean, these are some things that'll help you to make progress at a later point. For example, planning, for example, meditation, for example, laundry or shopping or learning about your craft. These are important things that you need to do for your profession, for your personal life, but not necessarily they are pressing. They're pressing urgent. They need to be done right now. But the thing is, if you do them at the right time, before time, I mean, they are going to help you to accomplish things, along the way. So not urgent and important. So you want to be spending more of your time in this quadrant as well. And the third one is not important and urgent. These are stuff that appears urgent, but they are not important. I mean, it could be phone calls. There is pressing urgency to pick up the phone right away, but is it really important? Sometimes it is, but most of the time it is not, right? Or it could be Facebook notification. It appears to be urgent because it screams on your face, but is it really important? Maybe not, right? And the last one is not urgent and not important. Not urgent and not important is like, it's just fillers. It doesn't lead anywhere. It's not urgent. It's nothing, right? It's just complaining, or maybe random gossip. That's not useful. Something of that nature, right? We all might have stuff. So make sure that you spend time in quadrant 1 and 2. And if there is something that seems pressing and urgent but not really important, see if you can delegate, which is basically quadrant 3. That there can be stuff that might have the pressing urgency, but they may not really be important. So see if you can delegate or push it off to a future scenario, right? So more time is spent in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2, more, we'll be utilizing our time effectively. So this matrix is a really good blueprint or a map to keep, to track our day-to-day activities, right? So, and on top of that, the scoring thing, recording or tracking every hour, twice a day, is becoming more mindful will go a really long way. And as this becomes a way of life, you do it more and more and more and more, you become more aware. Because once you start becoming aware, you can actually get back so many of those hours that gets leaked out, right, in the form of stuff that's not really important but it might appear to be urgent, or at times they're not even urgent, but it takes up so much of your time. And once we get all these hours back, we can use them to, I don't know, fill ourselves up. Let's say if you're exhausted, overwhelmed, you lack energy. So you get back all these hours and replace them with energy building rituals. It could be meditating, it could be reading, it could be you disappearing to a retreat, right? That'll fill you up, right? Because we don't take time to refuel ourselves. So get back those hours and replace them with stuff that fills you up. So awareness precedes change. So I think that might be, something that, the parents and professionals, everybody can use, right? And that this is a really good but simple blueprint that, we can use actually. And I think I've covered a great deal about time. I want to talk a little bit about the other three parameters as well, which time, right, which is focus, right? Why focus? Because as per research, if you're distracted every 11 minutes, what would have taken you an hour to finish will actually end up taking you 3 hours. So if you're just able to eliminate distractions from your schedule, you might cut down your time by half or 1/3 or even more, right? So how do we focus? So focus is a muscle, meaning more we do it, more we get better at it. So schedule time to practice focusing on an ongoing basis, right? And the number one rule of focus is instead of trying to focus on one thing, stop focusing on everything else. Eliminate all the options. Just lock yourself with one activity, and there's absolutely nothing else. I mean, keep your phone on flight mode, lock yourself in a room or a meeting room, or I don't know, coffee shop, or a farmhouse, something, right? And block that hour or a couple of hours or a time period, right? And eliminate all other options except the task at hand. I mean, if focus is something that you struggle with, eliminating all other options is a good place to start. And you'll come around being able to focus effectively, as you practice that more and more. And if you schedule practicing focus on a daily basis, since it's a muscle, more you repeat, more you work out, more you become muscular. So build a focus muscle, practice every day, practice focus every day, right? And so that's a little bit about focus. Second one is energy. Energy is something, I think we might live in times where energy is probably more important than intelligence, right? Because let's say if you're very skilled, and you have your priorities clear, you have a great strategy, but you have no energy, it's of no use. So it's the prerequisite to deploy any other skill set. So energy is the fundamental prerequisite. So you must prioritize increasing your energy levels. So energy levels is a twofold process. One is preventing energy leakage. Number one is including rituals that fills you up with energy. Preventing energy leakage happens in the form of mostly energy gets leaked out here, extra processing, the unfinished loops and unfinished business and stuff that's bothering you, stuff that appears to be urgent. And we carry forward all that baggage from one task to the other task. So we have to minimize those forms of energy leakage that happens here. And how we can do that? So one of the things that I teach is release ritual. Just take like a couple of minutes every hour or every couple of hours and do some form of a mini meditation, breathe in, breathe out. And when you breathe out, mentally visualize releasing all the thought loops, open loops, all the unfinished business from the previous task, from the previous day, or whatever. Just visualize releasing them as much as you possibly can, right? And do that 2-minute thing or 3-minute thing every hour or every couple of hours. Because what happens is we close the tasks physically, we don't close them mentally. We carry forward the baggage from one task to another, to the next task, and then on to the next task, and then on to the next task. And a few hours later, we are overwhelmed or we are drained. So a simple way out is just take a couple of minutes or 3 minutes every hour, or every couple of hours, just step back, Just do a breathing ritual. So disconnect from everything. Just close all those open loops. Just bring that voice down, turn down the volume, close the open loops, let them go, let the sense of urgency go. You can get back to all of that in like a couple of minutes. And then that's it. That 2 or 3 minute ritual will go such a long way to actually clear up some of the mental space every hour or every couple of hours. So this is one of the most effective ways to prevent energy leakage. That's number one. Number two is include rituals that builds energy. So for me, it's meditation, it's workout, it is meditation, workout. Sleep is very important. Nutrition is very important. Take all those supplements. And hydration is very important, right? Many a time we forget that we need to be hydrated. So combine all these things, and you might have something that actually works for you, that actually fills you up. So make sure you do more of that. So one is prevent energy leakage. Second one is include rituals that builds energy. Right? That's a little bit about energy, and the time, focus, energy, and relevancy. Yep. So what do I mean by relevancy? Relevancy is spend time doing relevant tasks that are relevant to your goals, the goals that are important to you, which means you need to know what your goals are. Other way of saying goals is outcomes. You need to be clear about your outcomes. What is the result that you want, right? I want to make 20 sales calls. That's not a goal. That's not an outcome. It's an activity. What's an outcome? I want to sell products worth $3,000 today. That's the outcome. I want to reach that goal of $3,000, right? So switch from activity, to-do list, to outcome. So, and because once you know your outcomes, it's easy to know it's easy to figure out what are the activities that will lead to those outcomes, like the critical few that will lead to those outcomes that are important for you, right? So that is relevancy. Basically spend time doing relevant tasks. Because let's say if you have a good degree of focus, you're really focused, you have a lot of energy, you're so skilled, you're so disciplined, you're so smart, but you're using all these traits that you have to learn about European history, but your goal is to become a successful businessman. So it doesn't make sense, because you're using your most important assets to do something that's not contributing to the goals that are important to you, right? Which is basically becoming a businessman or becoming a coach or whatever it is that you want to do. So relevancy is very important. Basically, you need to put in that focus, that energy in things, in activities which are of high value. When I say high value, they contribute more to the outcomes. So one of the ways to find a high value tasks is to find out what are your outcomes, what are the results that you want. I want to sell products. Let's say if you're a salesman, I want to sell products worth $3,000 today. Okay, that's the goal. All right. So what do I need to do to sell $3,000 worth of product? I need to sell 3 products because each product is worth $1,000. Okay, so I need to sell 3 products to 3 person. So I need 3 person who will buy my products. So I need, for me to sell 3 products, how many sales calls do I need to make? Maybe I need to make 8 sales calls to like prospects who might be interested in my product. So I need 8 prospects. So you go about finding 8 prospects who might be interested in the products or the service that you're offering, right? And then you find 8 prospects, right? And you make 8 sales calls, and then 3 out of them converts, and then you sell the product, right? And when you work backward from the outcome, it becomes very clear what are the steps that you need to do that will lead to those outcomes, right? In an optimal fashion. Let's say if you're not clear about the outcomes, you might say, I want to make 20 sales calls. You make 20 random sales calls during the day that doesn't lead anywhere. You're calling students, you're calling somebody who's not even remotely interested in your product. That's because you did not really take time to backward deconstruct from the outcome. So when you work backward from the outcomes, it becomes very clear what are the most relevant tasks. So clarity about the outcomes is fundamental. And other one is, of course, the matrix which I shared, with the urgent and important matrix. That's a great way to filter out the important activities, like the most relevant activities. Once you know what's most relevant, like the critical few that will lead to most of the results that you want, you deploy your best assets, your twin assets, I call it, focus and energy, into the things that are of very high value. And when you combine high degree of high quality focus, right, high levels of energy into the relevant tasks, high value tasks, you're going to really collapse the timeline over a period of time. And I think that'll be, yeah, that's essentially the formula. That's the approach for increasing your productivity. And it has four parameters, and you focus on each one of them, build each one of them incrementally, and you bring all of them together and collectively over a period of time, over so many iterations, over so many days, weeks, months, and years, you're actually going to increase your levels of productivity. And on top of that, you can also use the matrix, urgent and important matrix, which I just shared, which is this. You want to be spending most of your time in the quadrant 1 and quadrant 2, and spend as less time as possible in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. So I think that would be all. If anybody has any question, I would love to take them.
Okay, Manjyoti, thank you so much. That was, obviously I asked you to kind of give a real short, quick workshop with just a few things that people could really use. And you did an amazing job. If somebody is watching this and maybe thinks, okay, makes sense, but I'm just not sure how to make that work in my real life, perhaps they could get in touch with you to set up a coaching call. How would they best get in contact with you?
It's easy. Just go to calendly.com/Manjyoti, Calendly, calendly.com/Manjyoti, MONJYOTI. And they can book a free call, and I would love to have them on a call, and then have a conversation and see where they are, so that I can actually offer them something useful.
Fantastic. Okay, so maybe you'll put the link in the comments in the Facebook, so that people can check that out and contact you, and maybe get some help figuring out what that means to, in practical terms, for them to spend time in quadrant 1, or get rid of some of those time or energy leaks. And so thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have an amazing day, and I look forward to future collaborations.
Thank you, Penina, for having me here. It was a privilege. I had a lot of fun and hope to be back. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to this, and I hope to get in touch with all of you again. Thank you, Penina, again.
Thank you. You're going to have to end the actual, because I made you host, you'll have to end it.
Sure. Thank you.